Are you ready for rapid fire, Vince?
Boom. I knew this was a great transition moment. Let's do it.
Had to do it. Okay. So, got to get to the right place here. What are we going to talk about first? Oh, turns out we're going to talk about our buddy James Franklin at
There it is.
the press conference earlier today. So James Franklin had some things to say about teams and conferences and the college football playoff. Here it is.
You know, obviously you talk about just the differences between our two programs and conferences. I think it should be consistent across college football. I think, again, this is no knock at Coach or Notre Dame, but I think everybody should be in a conference. I think everybody should play a conference championship game, or no one should play a conference championship game. I think everybody should play the same number of conference games. I was a head coach in the SEC. I've been a head coach in the Big Ten. I was in the SEC when the whole conversation was whether to go to 8 or 9 conference games. We voted, all the coaches voted against going to 9 games. The commissioner agreed and kept it at 8. I think it was one of the better decisions as SEC made. The Big Ten went to 9 games. And, you know, I was not a math major at East Stroudsburg, but just the numbers are going to make things more challenging if you're playing one more conference game. So I just think things need to be consistent across college football. I think we need to look at the calendar. Should we open up a week earlier in the season to take some of the pressures off the end of the season? I think there's just a ton of things that need to be discussed.
All right, so there he is, Penn State head coach James Franklin, and thank you for the super chat, Tyler. He was asking early in the show what we thought about these comments. So, Vince, I know it's all teed up and ready to go for you.
It's just like, just because you play the same number of conference games, i.e., let's say Ohio State versus IU, does not make your schedule comparable.
Right.
Okay. That's my biggest issue with what
that's the biggest thing we found out this year, right? Just because you're in a conference and you're playing the same number of games doesn't mean that Penn State's schedule is equal to even Purdue's schedule. Because as I've talked about, Purdue played a tougher schedule than any of the 3, well, with the exception of maybe Ohio State. You know, 2 of the 3 Big Ten teams that were actually in the playoff, Penn State and Indiana. Purdue's schedule from top to bottom was tougher.
Yeah, exactly. So that doesn't equal things out. Just because you play the same number of games, that does not equal everything out. And I don't understand his logic, I guess. That's the best way to put it. And why that's not a good argument for me on why everybody needs to be in a conference. That's not a good argument for me because Ohio State didn't play in a conference championship game. And they're here. They're in the college football playoff.
Neither did Indiana. They're in the college football.
Right.
2 teams from his conference got into the playoff without playing in a conference championship.
So why does that matter so much? Just because you had to play in one and you got beat, does not mean everybody needs to play in one.
Let's be honest. The system favored him this year. Like, he's complaining.
Oh,
if they had seeded this, you know, just straight 1 through 12, I don't think that Penn State is in the semifinals right now.
Agreed. Completely agree. So, yeah, I don't think he's making the argument that he thinks he's making. That's the thing for me. That's not a good argument for everybody being in a conference. It's not.
And you know, and like you said, just because just because the SEC and the Big Ten would both be playing 9 games, that's still not going to make one schedule comparable to the other. I think that the Big Ten is going to, no one saw Indiana coming this year, obviously. So you couldn't predict that. Washington was in the playoff last year and they lost, the head coach and almost every player, including, a couple of guys who were Penix and Adunze, who were drafted high at the top of the first round, so you lost a lot of talent. Right. And, so Washington turned into a different team. Michigan won a national championship last year. They turned into a 500 team.
Does he forget that the last time Penn State won a national championship, they were an independent? Does he forget that piece of information?
I don't think he cares.
Come on, man. Jeez.
And that's no matter what, just because you're playing the same amount of games, again, not everyone is going to play in the conference. Only 2 teams from each conference can play in a conference championship game. But if the SEC and the Big Ten get all these bids that they want, there's going to be at least 2 teams every year from those conferences who are getting into the playoff without playing in a conference championship game. So it's like, really, it's on your conference just to say, man, we're just money hungry. And that's why we want to keep these things around. There's, like, no one is making the conferences play conference championship games. These are self-imposed, circumstances that these conferences are putting themselves in by having these conference championship games. It started with the SEC. It turned into a huge moneymaker. And really, the SEC's championship game is the only real big moneymaker remaining, both from a TV rating standpoint and from an attendance standpoint, like consistently year after year. So, like, no one's making your conference play a conference championship game.
Correct.
So get rid of the conference championship game. And, like what he was talking about with, like, starting the season earlier, to help out, the later part of the schedule, take away some congestion. I don't disagree with that at all. Like, that I can get on board with. But everybody needing to be in a conference and everybody needs to, play the same amount of conference games, it's not going to come close to solving what he thinks it's going to solve.
Nope, not at all.
All right. Fill in the blank. To this point, Notre Dame's season has blank.
Notre Dame's season has been blank? Is that what I'm supposed to? I don't have it up in front of me.
Notre Dame's season has blank.
Has lived up to expectations, but I want more. How about that? Like, I want more. Notre Dame's season has been great. They have done what I hoped that they would do. They won 2 games in the playoff, but I'm hungry for more. Like, they should win this game. I'm not going to be satisfied. Now that I'm here, I'm not going to be satisfied with winning 2 games in the playoff. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that it has exceeded expectations. Like, especially if you start from 0, after week 2, it's definitely exceeded expectations. We did feel like coming into this season, this should be a college football playoff team. And maybe Notre Dame would lose a game. None of us expected it to be the game
not that
they lost. But we all felt like this could be a college football playoff team. And I feel like we all, like, the minimal expectation was be in the playoff and win a first-round game. And now they've won 2 games, including, the biggest win that the program has had in more than 3 decades. So I feel like it has exceeded expectations, but now at this point, we're all going to get greedy, just like Marcus Freeman. And we feel like there's a whole lot more out there for this team. It's a team that has a legitimate chance to win a national championship.
Yep. 100%. I will be greedy until I'm told that the season is over. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Now, I may change my opinion as time travels on and we get into the spring and the summer and things like that, and you can kind of take more of a macro view. But in the moment, I want to keep winning. I want 2 more wins. I want 2 more wins for Notre Dame.
Vince wants it all.
I want it all, baby.
So Notre Dame defensive coordinator Al Golden's been connected to the Cincinnati Bengals vacant defensive coordinator position this week, according to some reports. Golden was, of course, the Bengals linebackers coach when they went to the Super Bowl 3 years ago. And here's what he said when he was asked about it at Tuesday's Orange Bowl Media Day. Quote, "Look, took us 30 years to get to this point here. I'm not worried about anything else but how to stop Penn State, and I mean that. 2 really good backs, a tight end that is dominant. We just talked about the quarterback in a scheme that is really, really challenging. That's the only thing we're focused on right now." End quote. Golden was then asked if the Bengals have contacted him about their job. And he said, quote, "I've talked to nobody. I can't even get out of the facility right now. We just had the shortest week of the year." End quote.
Not
so
true.
Vince.
Oh,
So Vince, what do you think of those responses from Al Golden?
I think that he is being completely honest about everything that he just said, but that doesn't mean that Cincinnati hasn't talked to his agent. They just haven't talked to him. I would fully anticipate that they are reaching out to Al Golden. I fully anticipate that this would be his response. Now, it's reported, right, that Al Golden makes about $2 million a year, right? Isn't that kind of what we've heard as far as one of the higher paid coordinators?
Yeah.
So that would make him the 5th highest paid coordinator in the NFL at this moment.
Right.
Okay. Which would be more than the former defensive coordinator was making at Cincinnati, which was $1.5 million, by the way. So from a money standpoint, I think Notre Dame will be very competitive with whatever anybody throws at Al Golden. And so I don't see that being a problem. Would he leave Notre Dame to be a defensive coordinator, same title, to the NFL? I don't think so. But I also
same
don't
title,
know
but it's also
in the NFL. I get it.
right.
I don't know Al Golden. I don't know what his aspirations are as a coach. I feel like he's very comfortable at Notre Dame right now. I think he's very comfortable with the players that he has to coach. And I think he sees what it takes to be successful here. I don't see him leaving, but I guarantee you Cincinnati has reached out.
TD4ND says, why would he leave? And this is basically the response you get from any Notre Dame fan when any of these things come. Why would anyone leave Notre Dame? You know, like, well, what are his career aspirations? Does he want to be an NFL head coach? Maybe he wants to be an NFL head coach. If he does, then being an NFL defensive coordinator gets him closer to that goal, where like you're not going to be an NFL head coach going from defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman could potentially, you know, like comparable coaches, Marcus Freeman, James Franklin, Kirby Smart, you know, like head coaches at, you know, Steve Sarkisian, head coaches at programs like this, you know, could potentially, even though it's even tougher there because it's like that leap from college to NFL, it just obviously doesn't always translate. There's not a lot of guys, but that's like, to me, when I looked at these comments, there's two different ways that I looked at it. One, he could easily just shut this down and say, I have zero interest in the Cincinnati Bengals. Sure. Why are you asking me that question? He didn't say any of that.
No, he didn't.
It was like, we're focused on Penn State, which is great, which he is. I get that. You know, we're focused on Penn State. I'm trying to beat these damn running backs, you know, because like some stuff came up earlier. And I think it was about, you know, like trying to figure out, you know, how to beat Rourke or, you know, whatever. I can't remember, you know, like the Indiana quarterback when some of that stuff came up before. So like he could have easily just shut it down and say, look, I've got no interest. This is where I am. I want to be here, you know, all that stuff. But he didn't say that. Now, the other part of it, though, you kind of alluded to, Vince, that is, does he really want to stay at Notre Dame? But at the same time, you know, you're Al Golden. You wouldn't mind a little pay raise, right? Like,
sure.
And what's he got by having his, just like Marcus Freeman, when Marcus Freeman's name was attached to the Chicago Bears, what did Marcus Freeman have? When the Bears thing was out there, when there was still Ryan Day uncertainty going on at Ohio State, it gave him leverage, and he's got a new contract. And that's what Al Golden has now. If he wants to stay at Notre Dame, he's at least got some leverage to maybe wrangle, you know, another $500,000 or $1 million, you know, out of this whole deal by staying at Notre Dame. When, you know, when you're in demand, it gives you some leverage in these things. So
I don't disagree.
I can't read Al Golden's mind, though, in terms of
the biggest thing.
What is his goal?
Is he just looking for money? Is he looking for the NFL? Is he looking to be a head coach? Like, we don't know the answer to any of that, right? Unless you flat out ask him, and he's going to give you this word salad answer. So you're not going to know because actions speak louder than words.
Yeah. TD4ND says he should get a pay raise, and Josh says, didn't he get an extension last year? He did, but you know, look, it's a year later, and now you're in the college football playoff semifinals. There's a big difference between being the defensive coordinator of the Sun Bowl champion and the defensive coordinator of a team that's one win away, at least right now, from playing in a national championship game. You know, so, you know, like when Marcus Freeman got his extension, part of the deal was more money for the assistants. So it's going to be really interesting to see, because like you know, like you expect bonuses and incentives and all those different things to be factored into that new contract for Marcus Freeman. So, and that trickles down to the assistants, like you talked about. Riley Leonard also fielded questions at Media Day. Here's what Leonard said about having 1 week to prepare for Penn State. Quote, mentally, it feels like we have 8 or 9 days because we don't have to go to school. Obviously, Notre Dame school is outrageous in a good way. We all love going to class. End quote. That, Vince, is blank.
That cracked me up because that is so Riley Leonard to tack on at the end. We love going to class. Like, nobody loves going to class, okay? Let's just be real clear on that. I mean, you can enjoy class, I suppose, but you don't love going to class. It's what you got to do. So I just think that that's hilarious that he would say that. Now, on the flip side, I think there is truth to what he is saying about not having to deal with that all day. All you have to worry about right now is football. That's it. That's all you've got to worry about.
Yep.
And from a mental standpoint, that's massive. That's massive. So
I agree. Like you always hear about, how much finals impact, like studying for finals and games and, even midterms and all that kind of stuff, what kind of impact that can have on performance in games. So like, that's like a huge, look, everyone's out of class, obviously, right now, like maybe unless you're, I don't know where Stanford is with like their trimesters and all that kind of stuff. Obviously they're not in the playoff, but I'm just,
right.
But everyone's for the most part out of class, but that's got to be a huge benefit because there is such an academic, a different academic focus here compared to a lot of these other places. But I was cracking up as well when I saw that. Notre Dame school is outrageous.
But we love going to class. We love it. We love it. Yeah, I think it's hilarious.
Another one from Leonard. Quote, I don't understand why I'm hard to tackle, honestly. I don't have very good juke moves. I'm very tall, not intimidating, at least on the field. But guys just miss. I don't really know why, end quote. So, Vince, why do you think Riley Leonard is hard to tackle?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think it's because a lot of people underestimate his athletic ability. Even though they see it on film, they watch it, they see it, and they're like, we can do it. Every single game we have watched Riley Leonard play in, people have underestimated his speed. Every single one. Every one. To a team. Like, they all underestimate what he can do with the football in his hands. I'm sorry.
I thought he was going to house that run against Georgia last week.
That's fair. But, like, when he got the corner on that 3rd and 7, the kid had an angle on him.
Yeah.
A bad one because he underestimated Riley Leonard's speed. Penn State's going to do the same thing. You watch. It's going to happen. They're going to underestimate what he can do with his legs, and he's going to make a play, and people are going to be like, how did that happen?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think that these guys watch him on film, and they just it looks like they should, like how many times have we seen where he takes off out of the backfield, and it looks like, well, that might be like a 2 or 3 yard loss, and the next thing you know, he's 8 yards downfield on the sideline running out of bounds. Right? Like, and it's the long strides. He's way faster than anyone think. And it's because of those long strides, I think. But he accelerates so quickly as well for someone who's a long strider like that. But that's exactly what it is. I just think they take bad angles because of the fact that, like, they've watched him on film all week trying to get ready for him, and it just doesn't stand out on film. I don't think they realize it until they're up close and personal and they're actually trying to bring this guy down.
It's wild. It really is wild that nobody can seem to figure it out. And for whatever reason, he is also a little slippery. You know what I mean? Like, he is difficult to actually tackle, like between the tackles, not necessarily when he's running past guys, but he's a little slippery and he's able to get out of some tackles.
Yeah.
He's thick. He is built thick. And
I think
guys kind of bounce off of him a little bit.
Because, like, when you get up close to him, he is definitely built like a basketball player. Like, he is pretty thin, but he also seems pretty strong because, like, you've seen him throw that stiff arm out there every now and then as well.
Yeah.
And it helps him, so I think that's it.
Again, why I would not trade him for the other 3 guys that are at that are in the playoff right now.
That's it. That's it. Because it's just something that those other 3 don't have. And
that's an intangible thing that they don't have. Yeah.
Look at just going back to the 3rd and 7 in the 4th quarter last week.
Exactly.
When he goes up and over, like, this is a guy, like, you're just expecting, a linebacker or a DB to just come out and flatten him.
I know.
But they don't even get those kind of shots on him because of what we were talking about. It's like bad geometry, like, we need to bring Jesse in here and break down the angles on this guy because they just don't. It's a little bit like Lamar Jackson as well, because they're built the same, obviously. And Jackson, like, you just don't see either one of those guys. Well, Jason just said Riley is Lamar 2.0. That's exactly it. Like, neither one of those guys really take those big shots because of how fast they are and just how elusive they are. They're able to wiggle out of that.
Yep.
Who's under more pressure to win the Orange Bowl, Marcus Freeman or James Franklin?
It's got to be Franklin, because I think people think that Notre Dame's overachieving right now, and Franklin is considered a good coach, and he can't win the big one. Like, no, look, Marcus Freeman's proven that he can win big games. I don't think James Franklin has proven that. I really don't. And so I think there's more pressure on James Franklin, to be perfectly honest with you. Look, everybody would be upset and disappointed if Notre Dame loses this game, myself included. But when you look back on the season, no one is going to say that this was a disappointing season or that this was not a successful season. And they will be singing the praises of Marcus Freeman and saying he deserved, the extension and all of those things. I don't know that that's the same case for James Franklin if he loses this game.
I agree. I do wonder, like, what Penn State fans will, because at the end of the day, you beat SMU and you beat Boise State.
Correct. Right. You beat one nice team so far.
Yeah.
Illinois.
It's nice. You win a couple games. It's better than losing, especially better than losing a home game. But
yeah, I mean, I want to retract. SMU and Boise were ranked. They beat those teams. But again, like, he does not have the resume of Marcus Freeman this season. He just doesn't.
No. And I completely agree. For that reason, it's James Franklin. I don't have to expand a whole lot more. That's exactly it. Like, he's still got to show that he can beat a team that is ranked ahead of him or ranked behind, similarly ranked, I guess you'd say. And even this one, like, they're the number 3 seed. Notre Dame's they're the higher seed. But like this is a much more, Notre Dame is a much more comparable team than either of the teams that they played.
I mean, and whether you're looking at the AP poll, you're looking at the CFP rankings, you're looking at the seeding, Notre Dame and Penn State are right next to each other, right? I mean, Penn State's the higher ranked team at 7, Notre Dame is 8 or 6 and 7, whatever it is. But then in the college football playoff, it's 3 and 4. So I mean, they're right next to each other. So this is a game that Franklin should win if he can win a big game. I mean, was it 1-13 in big games? Like, dude, that's not okay. That's not good.
Yeah, this is it, Josh. It was comparable to Notre Dame beating IU.
Right. Basically. But then Notre Dame upped the ante by beating Georgia. No matter what the Ohio State fans in the chat say, they still beat Georgia, the SEC champion. And whether you can say the SEC is down, you can say that Georgia's over, say whatever you want. Notre Dame beat a better team than Penn State has beaten so far.
SEC champion who also beat Texas twice this year. And, look who's in the Final Four right now. Oh, Mr. Bucknuts. He says, didn't Riley play with Duke or some ACC team last year? Yeah, just like Will Howard played for Kansas State or some Big 12 team last year.
So. Well done. That's a mic drop. Where is it?
You're lucky, Mr. Bucknuts, because unlike some of these other trolls, like, you can at least have a little fun. So we've let you hang out here. So
that was a mic drop moment for Sean Stiers. Well done. Well done, sir. Boom.
Josh wants to know 4th and 1, which quarterback?
It's not close.
I mean, it's not even close. If it's 4th and 1, I want Riley Leonard all day long.
It's not close. I want Riley Leonard all day because,
and that's of all 4 of the quarterbacks in the semifinals now.
Look, number one. I mean, 9 out of 10 times he's going to run the ball and he's going to get the first down. But there's that 1 out of 10 times that he can throw the ball and still get a first down because he has done that as well. But I want Riley Leonard. It's not close.
All day. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Notre Dame will have the ESPN Sean McDonough, Greg McElroy broadcast team for a 3rd straight game for the Orange Bowl.
Can I also add that they're going to have the same Big 12 refs as well?
They are.
They're just recycling. It just feels like they're recycling, whoever, and they're just following Notre Dame along the way. This will be the first. Well, yeah, this will be the first time that I've had to sit and listen to the broadcast And so
I guess that's true because you were at the game last week.
Right. And I was at the IU game, obviously. So I don't know. I mean, they seem to be okay. I don't have a huge problem with those two. I really don't. So
I saw some people, on McElroy about SEC bias last week. I said this last week. I still feel like it. I felt like I've seen a handful of games this year that McElroy, McDonough have done it. And I felt like the game that watching that game last week. And again, like I'm in and out, like in terms of like specific things that I'm really dialed into because I'm, taking notes and trying to keep track of things. But I really felt like McElroy was on like game situation stuff. He was on everything. Like you could tell he had done his research. He's watched a lot of films. He knew tendencies for both teams, all those different kind of things. I think it's kind of odd that the winner of this game is going to the national championship game. And the other Fowler Herb Street crew hasn't done a game for either Notre Dame or Penn State so far. So you would think that they would want to maybe flip it so that they've at least seen them once in the playoffs going into the national championship game, since that's the broadcast team that's going to be doing the title game next week. That's the only thing that kind of struck me as odd about having, because basically they've done Ohio State all the way through. And Herb Street has the obvious connection to Ohio State. So it just seems a little odd to me that they would keep them like that and they wouldn't flip them for the semifinals so that, again, the team that's going to be doing the national championship game has seen all the teams in the playoff at least once before the playoff when you're playing so many games. So.
Yeah, well, Tom doesn't want Fowler's bad juju all over Notre Dame. Well, if they win this game, you're going to get it in the next one.
Yeah, so. I mean, you're going to get them at some point if Notre Dame wins. So,
well, everybody's like, "Oh, thank God!" Well, hold that applause.
Yeah, again, like Notre Dame wins, you're going to get him next week. So you've only avoided him by 1 week.
Right.
Okay, some game props. Odds to score a touchdown this week. Leonard has -110. Tyler Warren -105. Jeremiah Love is +100. We were a little baffled last week by Love not having the great touchdown score
I know.
And his touchdown scoring streak ended.
I know. Very disappointing.
I know.
Very disappointing because that was just a gimme bet all season long, man.
Yep.
So that was disappointing. Of the three, I would take Tyler Warren. How about that? Just to mess with people's heads.
I would too. Just because it feels like if Penn State's going to score a touchdown, it's either him or Singleton to me. And Singleton, has worse odds, obviously, than Jeremiah Love because I put the top three there at the top. So Leonard and Aller. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, Leonard's got a great shot of getting into the end zone, right? I mean, look, I think Penn State has the best touchdown against defense in the red zone, which is obviously going to be tough for Notre Dame, but Notre Dame has the best touchdown scoring, I believe, offense, or one of the best scoring offenses inside the red zone.
Yeah.
So when it comes to touchdowns specifically, I just don't kick field goals. They go in and they score. So I feel like Leonard is a pretty good bet here, but I would still take Warren over Leonard. Just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, I just think because I think Notre Dame has more options.
Yeah.
Who's going to score it? That's always, figuring that out if you're actually going to play some money on it. That's the toughest part. And I feel like Warren is, would basically be the safest bet in this whole thing. Leonard's passing number 164.5. His rushing number is 49.5.
Well, obviously coming off of the last game, and Leonard only have 90 yards passing and blah, 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 blah. Look, I think Drew Aller is going to have to throw the football. I think he's got a good shot of getting to the 200 mark, and that's fine. I think they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more. So I would take the over on Drew Aller. I wouldn't touch Riley Leonard's passing.
I would not either.
I would take
the over on 49.5 rushing yards.
I would too. So. And I think I would take the under on Aller's rushing yards, to be perfectly honest, because I think there's going to be some sacks involved.
I think he's going to have negative yards when it's all said and done.
So I would take the over on passing, the under on rushing. I wouldn't touch Leonard's passing, and I would take the over on rushing.
So tell me what you're doing on Aller's passing. It's 183.5.
Taking the over.
I didn't even get to those numbers. I only mentioned 2 numbers.
Damn it.
You went straight to Aller.
So what I get for reading along,
you and your ADD.
like reading
Did
Rainbow.
you go over? Did you go over on 183.5 for Aller?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think they're going to be. I do
rushing.
think they're going to be throwing the ball a bunch in this game, and I think he will have good passing.
I think they're going to have to. They're going to have to throw a lot.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to come down to. Yeah. So the rushing numbers, Jeremiah Love's over-under is 35.5. Jadarian Price, 48.5.
Okay. I'm not touching J Love because
how can you? Because we don't know
because
exactly how healthy.
Whether I buy into all the nonsense people are talking about or not, you just don't know. And I'm not going to risk money on something I just don't know about. Price, I'm taking the over. I think he's the lead back in this game. And if Notre Dame wins the game, and I think that they will win the game, I think he's got more than 50 yards rushing. So I'm taking the over on Price.
And that's part of why I'm taking the over on Leonard as well, because you can compensate, obviously, for whatever Love is or isn't. And again, it just feels like how they use Leonard as a runner is dictated by how Love and Price are running the game and just how well they're able to, to move the ball to that point. Because like we've said, really it's taken till the second half of both games. But yeah, I would definitely go over on Price. And like you said, even at 35.5, I'm not touching Jeremiah Love because I just, we don't know. Like Marcus, of course, Marcus Freeman's going to say he's healthy, but we just don't know.
Yeah.
So for Penn State, Katron Allen, 58.5, Nick Singleton, 60.5 rushing. The receiving numbers are 6.5 for Allen, 26.5 for Singleton.
Georgia rushing the football last week. 38 yards, 37 yards by their 2 main backs, right? I'm taking the under on both. Notre Dame is going to focus on the run against Penn State. And when they focus on the run, like everybody's like, oh, well, you can gash Notre Dame, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's when they're focused on passing, and defending the pass. That's not the focus. And it doesn't need to be in this game. You're going to focus on the run game like they did against Georgia. And
they're going to make Aller and, Slash Warren have to beat them is what they're going to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm taking the under on both of the running backs.
I'm taking the under on both of their rushing numbers, just like you. And I'm taking the over on the receiving numbers because I think
that's fair.
They're going to want to get him, especially Allen at 6.5 yards. But, again, Singleton is 26.5. Like they're, if the running game is not working, they're going to try everything they can to at least get Singleton involved. So I'll go over on both of the receiving totals for those 2 guys.
That's fair. That's fair. I probably wouldn't touch the receiving totals on those guys, but I get where you're coming from, and I agree with it.
Tyler Warren over under 63.5 receiving yards.
Under. I still think he's going to be the guy, the go-to guy, but I feel like Notre Dame's going to hold him under. Again, he had 47 yards against Ohio State. I still feel like Ohio State's defense and Notre Dame's defense are comparable, and I think it's going to be under.
I'm pretty confident it's going to be under. I think he could still get his yards, and that doesn't necessarily, even if it's like 70, 75 yards, and I don't think that, that's going to destroy Notre Dame by any means. This is, outside of can they shut down the running game, this is the question. How do you defend a tight end like this that you haven't faced all season? They haven't faced this kind of guy at this position. But I think that he's somewhere between 50 and 60 yards is where I'd put him.
Nope.
Faison is 42.5. Mitchell Evans, 25.5. And Bo Collins, 17.5. Greathouse, 10.5. Do you like overs for any of these guys?
I like the over on Bo Collins. I would take Bo. I like the over on Greathouse. The other ones, I don't think I would mess with.
Yeah, I feel like because of what Faison has done the last couple of weeks, like he's going to get more attention from Penn State this week, and it gives, at least one of these other guys some different opportunities to get their hands on the ball. But, like for the most part, it's really been like 1, 2, 3 catches for any of these guys.
Yeah, you're right.
So I think Greathouse and I think I agree with you. Greathouse at 10.5 and Collins at 17.5 are the most confident in the overs that I've got.
Yep.
Like Faison could easily do it in one play, but like, can he get loose again?
Correct.
And that's it. Oh, Andre threw in a late question. If Notre Dame scores over 28 points, who are the game wreckers on offense?
Riley Leonard, Jadarian Price. Those are my two.
Yep. That's what I'd go with.
Those are my two. Yeah, because I look again, once again, and honestly, every game. I mean, Riley Leonard's the X factor, and he always will be for me. That's why I'm glad I don't have to do that particular show in the afternoons, because it would always be Riley Leonard for me. Just like the key to victory for the offense is always start fast. They are who Riley Leonard is. If he has a good game, Notre Dame has a good game. And so if they end up with 28 points, like I said in my analysis of the game, or my prediction of the game, I said if the first team to 20 is going to win this game. And I still believe that. So if they score 28, Riley Leonard and Price are the ones that got him there.
I agree. All right, take a breath. It's almost here. One sleep left.
Got a whole day of work tomorrow, though, to get through, man.
I got a basketball game I've got to finish getting.
That's true. That's a really, really good point.
5 o'clock basketball game out of the house a little after 3 o'clock to get over there, and then hopefully back. I'm hoping if it times out right, I'm back here just in time for the start of the football game.
That's right.
Tomorrow night. We'll see how it works out. All right. Appreciate everybody being here. Don't forget, of course, there will be a post-game show tomorrow night. Are you going to be on the post-game show tomorrow?
I will be on the post-game show. Yep. Sure will.
Right.
I think.
No, I was looking at that.
Gonna
Father
say,
David said, Vince, I love hearing your call on the serious feed. Makes the drive home Sundays much more fun. And I was looking at it going, what is Vince calling? I was like, what did I miss here?
Not calling anything.
Then Father David said, Sean, not Vince. Thank you very much.
I was going to say.
All right. Hit that like button before you leave. A lot of great questions tonight. Appreciate it. As always, post-game show tomorrow. Vince and Jesse and I will be here Friday with a reaction show, of course.
Super positive one is what we're all hoping for.
That's right. Positive vibes. Come along for the ride. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Ivy Nation Sports Talk.